Hi guys, I just wanted you to have the rest of this chapter 9. I don't know where we're going to leave off in all our classes, but I'm going to start at this section just because I think that it's an important section to start off with. So this is when Atticus is explaining to Scout that he does not want her to fight and that he wants her to keep her head high, even though there's going to be some inappropriate comments that are made, especially leading up to this trial that's going to happen. All right. He doesn't want Scout to give in to the mean talk because he knows that she is impulsive and she reacts. Scout is still questioning why he's even doing this, especially if they're not going to win, because Atticus mentions right here, after she asks, Atticus, are we going to win it? He says, no, honey. Right? And he gives her the explanation that simply because we were licked 100 years before we started is no reason for us not to try to win. So even if you think you're going to lose, even if you think it's pointless, the least that you can do is try. So remember, Atticus always with his advice and his optimism. So he's like, at least give it a shot. Right. In this section right here, she kind of just remembers a cousin and she tries to connect it to that story. We're not going to focus on that too much. And then we move on over here to where he is still giving, like I said, these subtle talks to her saying that, hey, it's different than a civil war, like a real civil war, because in this case, we're not fighting someone that we don't know. We're fighting people that we do know. We're fighting our friends. But he does mention that no matter how hard it gets, these people are still your friends and this is still your home. Like Macomb is still your home. Okay? So then the next day she sees Cecil Jacobs. She tries to make him take it back. He doesn't listen, and he actually keeps going and he keeps saying these inappropriate words. And so she remembers what Atticus says and she follows his advice. And it was the first time that she walked away from a fight. So she's good until Christmas comes. So this Christmas scene, all right, explains to us what they do for Christmas. They go to Finch's Landing, which is where Aunt Alexandra lives, and Uncle Jack Finch, the one that's the doctor, he comes down from Boston and they all spend Christmas Eve together and then Christmas Day. This tells us a little bit about Uncle Jimmy and Aunt Alexandra. Remember, Uncle Jimmy doesn't really ever talk. And then they tell us a little bit more about how Auntie and Uncle Jimmy, so Aunt Alexandra and her husband, they had a son. The son's name is Henry. Henry, as soon as he could leave Finch's Landing, left. He got married, and then he had a son, Francis, okay? And every Christmas, they drop off their son by their grandparents, okay? So technically, Francis would be what you would consider Scout and Jem's second cousin because that's the son, that's the grandson of their aunt, okay? So they have mixed feelings about Christmas. They like Christmas.
All staff, please report to the football field at 1:45. All staff, please report to the football field at 1:45. Thank you.
Sorry, guys. They had an announcement. Okay, so where am I? Okay, so we learn a little bit about this second cousin. His name is Francis Hancock. He's a year older than Scout, so he's probably 7 at this point, and they are basically two very different people, okay? And then they tell us about Aunt Alexandra and her behavior. She is not very kind and warm. She's kind of cold. They compare her to Mount Everest. You guys know Mount Everest, it's a cold mountain, okay? And she's always just very excited about Uncle Jack. Uncle Jack's a little shorter than Atticus. He's the baby of the family. This is the one that's a doctor. He's younger than Aunt Alexandra. And he's just really great. He's a great doctor, but he never acts like a doctor. Even a time that he had to take out a splinter from her hand, he kind of joked around with her, and then she never realized that he took out the splinter, so he knew how to distract her. He always brought cool gifts, so they have really good memories with Uncle Jack. Okay, he has a cat also, and you'll notice that right here she sees Uncle Jack, and they start talking about Rose Almer, which is Uncle Jack's cat. And he says, oh, she's getting fat. She is fat, whatever the case is. And Uncle Jack says, oh, she's getting fat because she's eating leftover fingers and ears from the hospital. Haha, obviously a joke. Scout, mind you, she's like 5.5, 6, okay? She says, oh, that's a damn story, all right? Damn is a bad word, especially for a little girl to say. And like, Uncle Jack is like, wait, what? He's shocked that she said damn, all right? Because she shouldn't be saying damn because she's a little girl. And again, growing up a lady is an important aspect of our story. It's kind of one of our themes, right? Let's see. Atticus makes it a point to like not like make a big deal about it because he realizes that Scout is doing it to get attention. She is really still trying to get out of school. Her mentality is that if Atticus realizes that she's cursing, maybe he'll think that she's getting it from school and then he'll stop sending her to school. But obviously that's not going to happen. All right. Um, but Uncle Jack really doesn't like to hear her say words like damn or hell because again they're not ladylike. All right, and he tells her this whole week that he's with them he does not want to hear her speak like that. Right, and really the uncle wants her to be like a lady. Okay, so here we go. This is the next morning. They're going to go for Christmas. um, they find out that Atticus got them air rifles, and then Uncle Jack brought them down from Boston, and so they're all excited, but they're not allowed to bring them there. Then they describe French's Landing, which is actually really big, 366 steps, and it goes all the way down to a jetty. This is a jetty, in case you guys are wondering, that picture right there. Um, and they just talk about like how they had like Negroes that were working there and just everything that they have going on. They have 6 bedrooms upstairs. That used to be for like all of the female children and the one sole son that they had and all of that. Okay. Then they also talk about the kitchen and how it was separate, and they mention Simon Finch and all that stuff. When they get there, this is how the family greets each other. They kiss Uncle Jack. Francis kisses Uncle Jack. Uncle Jimmy shakes hands with Uncle Jack. Everyone's happy to see each other. Presents are exchanged, etc. So then Scout tries to be like polite with Francis, and she says, "What did you get for Christmas?" And Francis says he got exactly what he asked for. He asked for a pair of knee pants, which is basically just like shorts that go up to your knee. And then he asked for a book sack to carry books. Then he asked for 5 shirts and an untied bow tie. So obviously you can tell that Francis is considered uncool to Scout because Scout wanted a toy and Francis, who's like a year older than her, asked for these weird items. And she tries to be polite though. She's like, oh, that's nice. But Francis is already kind of like rude and just he's kind of arrogant with her, right? And she says that talking to him gives her the sensation of settling slowly to the bottom of the ocean. So imagine something that's slowly going down to the ocean. So boring. She even calls him the most boring child she ever met, which is not very nice, but at least she doesn't say it to his face. Okay. So, Aunt Alexandra definitely has her opinion on how Atticus is raising them. Remember, they don't have a mom, so Aunt Alexandra is kind of like the only female besides Calpurnia, but Calpurnia is black and she's the cook, so they don't really like regard her as like a female presence. And so Aunt Alexandra feels like she's kind of responsible to try to make Scout act more like a lady. All right, so we're gonna keep going over here. And they talk about Christmas dinner. Christmas dinner is really good. Like Scout still has to sit at like the little table and everyone else is kind of sitting at the big table. But Aunt Alexandra does cook a really big meal, which they absolutely love. And Francis even says, like, Grandma's a wonderful cook. She's going to teach me how to cook. And she giggles, Scout giggles because she says boys don't cook. And then Francis, they get into just a whole discussion about like that boys should kind of be able to take care of their wives because men don't take care of their wives. Wives do everything. You guys know, the boys probably know that their moms do it. No, I'm kidding, guys. But that's just kind of the mentality. Again, it's like what a woman's role is. Like a woman should be doing everything. And the man doesn't have to do this. So the roles are changing and they're different there. Okay, so then Scout kind of talks about Dill, and she says that they're going to get married, all right, as soon as they're big enough. And like Francis kind of has his opinion about Dill, and he says that Aunt Alexandra, which is his grandma, says that, oh, that kid, he doesn't have a family. And Miss Rachel, that's like they just pass him off from family to family member because he doesn't have one. So um, that's kind of where we are. And I do just want you to listen to this piece. So I'm going to play it, and I hope that you guys will be able to hear it. Let's see. Hold on a second. All right. I'm just loading it, guys, because the tab. No.
Chapter 9.
All right, I'm moving it.
You can just take that back, boy, said Francis. What about him? Grandma says he hasn't got a home. Has two. He lives in Meridian. He just gets passed around from relative to relative, and Miss Rachel keeps him every summer. Francis, that's not so. Francis grinned at me. You're mighty dumb sometimes, Jean Louise. Guess you don't know any better, though. What do you mean? If Uncle Atticus lets you run around with stray dogs, that's his own business, like Grandma says. So it ain't your fault. I guess it ain't your fault if Uncle Atticus is a nigger lover besides. But I'm here to tell you, it certainly does mortify the rest of the family. Francis, what the hell do you mean? Just what I said. Grandma says it's bad enough he lets you all run wild, but now he's turned out a nigger lover. We'll never be able to walk the streets of Macomb again. He's ruining the family, that's what he's doing. Francis rose and sprinted down the catwalk to the old kitchen. At a safe distance, he called, He's nothing but a nigger lover. He is not, I roared. I don't know what you're talking about, but you better cut it out this red-hot minute. I leaped off the steps and ran down the catwalk. It was easy to collar Francis. I said, take it back, quick. Francis jerked loose and sped into the old kitchen. Nigger lover, he yelled. When stalking one's prey, it is best to take one's time. Say nothing, and as sure as eggs, he will become curious and emerge. Francis appeared at the kitchen door. You still mad, Jean Louise? He asked tentatively. Nothing to speak of, I said. Francis came out on the catwalk. You gonna take it back, Francis? But I was too quick on the draw. Francis shot back into the kitchen, so I retired to the steps. I could wait patiently. I had sat there perhaps 5 minutes when I heard Aunt Alexandra speak. Where's Francis? He's out yonder in the kitchen. He knows he's not supposed to play in there. Francis came to the door and yelled, Grandma, she's got me in here, and she won't let me out. What is all this, Jean Louise? I looked up at Aunt Alexandra. I haven't got him in there, Auntie. I ain't holding him. Yes, she is, shouted Francis. She won't let me out. Have you all been fussing? Jean Louise got mad at me, Grandma, called Francis. Francis, come out of there. Jean Louise, if I hear another word out of you, I'll tell your father. Did I hear you say hell a while ago? No. I thought I did. I'd better not hear it again. Aunt Alexandra was a back porch listener. The moment she was out of sight, Francis came out, head up and grinning. Don't you fool with me, he said. He jumped into the yard and kept his distance, kicking tufts of grass, turning around occasionally to smile at me. Jem appeared on the porch, looked at us, and went away. Francis climbed the mimosa tree, came down, put his hands in his pockets, and strolled around the yard. Ha, he said. I asked him who he thought he was, Uncle Jack. Francis said he reckoned I got told for me to just sit there and leave him alone. I ain't bothering you, I said. Francis looked at me carefully, concluded that I had been sufficiently subdued, and crooned softly, "Nigger lover." This time I split my knuckle to the bone on his front teeth. My left impaired, I sailed in with my right, but not for long. Uncle Jack pinned my arms to my sides and said, "Stand still."
Okay, so that whole little piece obviously shows you that Francis was super rude. Francis used the N word too, and obviously was making fun of Atticus. And again, Scout lost her temper. And he said it a lot of times. And he said that, like, Atticus is kind of making fun of, is making the whole family look bad. All right. So this time, after like getting in trouble by Aunt Alexandra, he says it again. And so she punches him right in his two front teeth, and she scratches her, or she like cuts open her fist because obviously she hits his teeth. Okay. Uncle Jack comes in, he holds her arms down, and Alexandra is taking care of Francis, who's crying because he got punched. And then, like, Francis jumps in and he actually says, "Grandma," he bowed, "she called me a whore lady and jumped on me." All right. So, like, he lied. That's not true because obviously Scout didn't say anything to him. Right. And then Uncle Jack looks down at her and he says, "I told you not to use words like that." And he spanks her. All right. She gets in big trouble. And Scout is so upset at Uncle Jack because Uncle Jack did not even like ask her what happened. All right. She's like, "I'll never speak to you again as long as I live. I hate you and despise you and I hope you die tomorrow," which is also pretty harsh, but she gets like really upset. Okay. When she gets home, like, she slams the door. She doesn't like talk to anybody. She doesn't say goodbye to anybody. They get home and she only has like 7 or 8 red marks, but that's still a lot for getting spanked. Okay. Uncle Jack tries to come and talk to her and she says, "Go away." And he's like, "So are you still mad at me? Do you still hate me?" And she's like, she is still upset. And he's like, "I didn't think you were going to be upset that long." Like, I guess like kids got spanked and they weren't supposed to get upset. Like, she should have known because she did something bad. And she tells him that he's not fair. Uncle Jack is not fair. And Uncle Jack is like, "Not fair? What are you talking about?" And she basically tells him, "You didn't even ask my side of the story. Whenever like I get into a fight with Jem, Atticus always listens to both sides of our story. And Uncle Jack did not do that. And he's right." So then she proves her point and she explains what Francis did, what Francis called Atticus. And then Uncle Jack gets so mad. He's so mad at Francis that he wants to beat him as well because it's not okay that he said those things. So then he takes care of Scout's like split knuckles, and he tells her that, "Hey, you're going to end up having a little scar." And then like, Francis said that whore lady word, and she doesn't even know what that word means because she asks him, like, "Hey, what's that word mean?" Uncle Jack gets really uncomfortable, so he tries to explain it in like a weird random story, which doesn't make sense. And then she's supposed to go to sleep, and then Uncle Jack goes to talk to his brother Atticus, and he's like, "I don't think I'm ever gonna get married." And Atticus is like, "Why?" He's like, "Because then I might have children, and if I have children, I'm gonna have to deal with them the way that you have to deal with your kids." And so then he explains all of that, and he tells him about how she asked what the whore lady word meant, and he tells him, "Well, did you tell her what it meant?" And Uncle Jack is like, "No, I told her some other story." And he's like, "No, no, no, never do that. Whenever a kid asks a question, tell them what the answer is, and then explain it to them the right way. Like, they have to just learn what these things are, and if they see you getting fussy about it, then they're gonna make it a big deal, right?" But he's worried about Scout because he knows that Scout has a short temper and all of this stuff is going to come up, right? Atticus has never hit her before. Like, he always just kind of reasons with her and talks to her. But, like, she is still very hot-tempered, short-tempered and hot-headed. And so he's just afraid that people are going to say upsetting things and she's going to just lose it, okay? Uh, so then, like, Uncle Jack asks Atticus about how bad this whole trial thing is going to be, and he's like, "It's bad." It's like, "The only thing we have is a black man's word against the Yules, who are a white family." Okay? And he's like, "The evidence is just going to boil down to who did it. Was it you or was it me?" And the jury probably won't take Tom Robinson's side because he's a black man against a white family. right? Remember, think about our Scottsboro boys case, right? Um, so then he says, I think that we might be able to appeal, but we'll see. And then he says, why are you doing it, huh? And again, everybody keeps asking, why are you doing it? And he says, well, I have to, or else I couldn't face my children. Again, like, I have to do this because it's the right thing to do. And you can tell, again, a little bit about his character, like it's the right thing to do. So Atticus is worried about this case and what it's going to do to the kids. And he says that the only thing I care about is I don't want my kids to get Makeham's usual disease. He says, I hope and pray I can get Jem and Scout through it without bitterness, and most of all, without catching Makeham's usual disease. What could this disease be? It's not like the flu or like COVID. It's another type of disease that I want you guys to think about. He says, why reasonable people go stark raving mad when anything involving a Negro comes up is something I don't pretend to understand. So he's like basically saying that white folks become obsessed with anything that happens with black people because what is the R word that we're thinking about? White people are very what during this time period, okay? You're going to take a guess and answer a question right now, all right? But think about what that usual disease might be. The usual disease is that people are being that, okay? Then, after he says that, he says, Jean Louise, mind you, Scout was sitting in like the side listening to this whole conversation, okay? And meanwhile, Atticus knew she was there, so she thought she was all being slick hiding, but her dad knew she was there. So he calls her out and she says, Sir, and he tells her to go to bed. She's shocked and she's like, oh my God, Atticus knew that I was listening the whole time. It's not till years later when she's older that she realizes he wanted her to hear that whole conversation about how difficult it was going to be and how he doesn't want her to catch the usual disease. It was an intentional conversation. And that is the end of chapter 9, everyone. Hopefully you will be able to answer these questions. Remember, it's a quiz grade. Best of luck. Bye.